I like you bringing up kids because kids can create as much distance as geography in a
Yeah.
marriage. And I heard a seminar on this one time, and it made me laugh. The speaker was asked, "Well, aren't kids good for marriage? Don't they bring couples together?" And the speaker frowned and said, "No, by no means. As a matter of fact, kids drive couples away from each other." Um, and so I think anything that interrupts the bonding experience between a couple can be a problem if not managed well. And being aware of that, couples can intelligently recognize there may be time for a reset, if you will, and to make sure that they don't forget why they came together. And I want to bridge into another point. I think people forget the real purpose of marriage. In our culture, it's just about romance. But marriage is more than a romantic connection. It is it is a godly institution with divine purpose. And and so when people don't get those warm, fuzzy romantic feelings anymore, they think, okay, it's time to get a new model. And it's because they were never connected by the other godly elements that should bring couples together in agreement. Um, so I think, I've talked to my kids about these things, and they just think that's just so unromantic, dad or granddad.
I think that, you know, America, if you think about it, um, America generates a lot of revenue. People make a lot of money on the notion of romance. They make movies about it. They create days, Valentine days, and all of these other things. Every kiss begins with K, and so what is brought, what is kind of pushed down our throats is that in order for this relationship called marriage to work, it requires constant romance. Um, but if we look at it through the right lens, it's not eternal. Jesus says clearly, in on the other side, we're not given in marriage, meaning there is no need for a marital relationship. Well, what does that mean? Well, obviously, it must be about the management of a household as it relates to the command to be fruitful and multiply. Um, I think that we lose sight by sometimes by over emotionalizing, you know, do I feel like getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning to take my daughter to school? I don't feel like that's a joyous event, right?
Right.
But in this season, it is my responsibility because I don't necessarily want my kids on buses at this stage in the game. So if they're not doing that, I'm definitely ain't gonna let them walk. So guess what I have to do? The responsible thing right now in this season is to get up, and my love is demonstrated in my desire to be responsible towards them more
So
than how I'm feeling about what I'm having to do.
so I'll introduce a word that's a sister to responsible, and that's duty. And it's a
Yeah,
word that everybody hates. But in marriage, there is duty,
there is duty.
and and duty most times is not very romantic. So um, we um, we really have to help our kids have a more realistic view than the culture is giving them. So in the time we have left, I mean, it's been a lot of fun, but let's have a different kind of fun. Let's throw out some ideas, some techniques that people can employ when they are called to separation. and as is often the case in Christian life, whether it be as missionaries or as evangelists, or your job takes you away, whatever. But you find yourself in this long distance relationships, in this long distance relationship. How do you best manage it? And I'll throw the first one out. I think one of the first things you have to do is keep your mate on your mind. Think about them often, and think about the good times, and think about why you married them, because that memory will cause a level of emotional connection that can keep you hopeful and strong. So I'll throw that one out, and I'm going to back that up with a song here in a minute. But you throw one out before I do that.
I call it sensory deprivation. By that I mean, I think you have to generally every night, whether I do it before I go to sleep, I generally get up and I go and check to make sure all of the locks are locked, all the lights are off. You know, I go do my little sweep to make sure that everything is where it should be. By that I mean, when I say sensory deprivation, I think you have to guard and make sure that things are locked. You know, you got to watch what you're watching on television. Be careful, because it can up your senses, if you understand what I mean.
Yes.
Be careful who you are associating with. Make sure that when you are addressing women, make sure that you're not leaving anything up for interpretation, right? So you have to be very sensitive. Like, you have to almost desensitize yourself to what's going on around you that could potentially get you, could challenge the relationship that you have with your spouse. Does that make sense? It
It
goes back
does.
to
I
what I
like
was
that.
saying. Every day
Yeah.
I couldn't go out to eat, but that didn't mean that every day I didn't go out to eat. It just meant that, you know what, there's a space right now that I need to be making sure it doesn't get filled with the wrong thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And it can sneak up on you, you know?
And so that's why you and I have to be sober minded,
Yes.
have to be serious about why we are away, And so I was serious about um, what I believe God, Yahweh led me there to take care of. So to me, I think you almost have to deprive your senses and be alert enough to know, no, today is not that day.
That's a great piece of advice. So let me throw in, I mentioned I was going to talk about a song. And the song suggests that part of what we have to be prepared to do is endure and have faith in each other and have faith in God. And as I said, keep each other on each other's minds. Um, so using technology makes a lot of sense. Clearly, make those phone calls, send those texts, and even drop a card. All of those things keep the heart fires burning. But what takes place in your mind is more important than what takes place anywhere else, and that's kind of what we're talking about. So Celine Dion sang a song uh, that I think encapsulates this idea of being away from a loved one, yearning for them, but maintaining hope and endurance that one day they'll be back together. So I'm going to read the words to that song. It says, miles and miles of space in between us, and a telephone can't take the place of your smile. But you know that I won't be traveling forever. It's cold out, but hold out and do like I do. Because when I need you, I just close my eyes and I'm with you. And all that I so want to give you is only a heartbeat away. I think it's a beautiful sentiment that she's basically saying, I'm traveling. And as we know, musicians travel a lot. I'm traveling, but one thing I'm doing is keeping you on my mind.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I agree.
All right,
Beautiful
what
song.
else?
I think this covered, a little bit more than just, the dynamic of being away from a geographical standpoint,
Yes.
because I think we've done a good job of trying to help people understand that distance is not just measured by miles.
So true. Yes.
It can be, so yeah.
Well, this has been a lot of fun. I I hope we've put some stuff out there that will help people. A lot of relationships have gotten into trouble. Some have ended, and certainly a lot of people have suffered when they are unaware of how difficult this can be. And so I hope that our listeners will like what we have shared with them, and that they would like it enough to like, comment, and subscribe to the Orange Peel podcast. So thank you for being a partner in this discussion this morning. This has been a lot of fun for me. I hope you've enjoyed.
I have, man. Thank you so much, and I look forward to the next time.
All right.
We hope you enjoyed this discussion of how Christians can successfully manage long-distance relationships. Quotations of the scriptural references that supported this discussion follows. May God bless you in whatever state His will has laid out for you. Genesis 2:18. Then the Lord God said, "It is not good that the man should be alone. I will make him a helper fit for him." Genesis 2:24. Therefore, a man shall leave his father and his mother, and hold fast to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. Deuteronomy 24:5. When a man is newly married, he shall not go out with the army or be liable for any other public duty. He shall be free at home 1 year to be happy with his wife whom he has taken. 1 Corinthians 9:5. Do we not have the right to take along a believing wife, as do the other apostles and the brothers of the Lord and Cephas? 1 Corinthians 7:9. But if they cannot exercise self-control, they should marry, for it is better to marry than to burn with passion. Song of Songs 8:6-7. Set me as a seal upon your heart, as a seal upon your arm, for love is strong as death, jealousy is fierce as the grave. Its flashes are flashes of fire, the very flame of the Lord. Many waters cannot quench love, neither can floods drown it. If a man offered for love all the wealth of his house, he would be utterly despised. Song of Songs 5:8. I adjure you, O daughters of Jerusalem, if you find my beloved, that you tell him I am sick with love. Proverbs 5:18-19. Let your fountain be blessed and rejoice in the wife of your youth. 9, a lovely deer, a graceful doe. Let her breasts fill you at all times with delight. Be intoxicated always in her love. Do not deprive one another, except perhaps by agreement for a limited time, that you may devote yourselves to prayer, but then come together again, so that Satan may not tempt you because of your lack of self-control. Now, as a concession, not a command, I say this. I wish that all were as I myself am, but each has his own gift from God, one of one kind and one of another. To the unmarried and the widows, I say that it is good for them to remain single as I am. But if they cannot exercise self-control, they should marry. For it is better to marry than to burn with passion. To the married I give this charge, not I, but the Lord. The wife should not separate from her husband, but if she does, she should remain unmarried or else be reconciled to her husband, and the husband should not divorce his wife. 1 Corinthians 7:17-24. Only let each person lead the life that the Lord has assigned to him and to which God has called him. This is my rule in all the churches. Was anyone at the time of his call already circumcised? Let him not seek to remove the marks of circumcision. Was anyone at the time of his call uncircumcised? Let him not seek circumcision. For neither circumcision counts for anything nor uncircumcision, but keeping the commandments of God. Each one should remain in the condition in which he was called. Were you a bondservant when called? Or do not be concerned about it. But if you can gain your freedom, avail yourself of the opportunity. For he who was called in the Lord as a bondservant is a freedman of the Lord. Likewise, he who was free when called is a bondservant of Christ. You were bought with a price. Do not become bondservants of men. So, brothers, in whatever condition each was called, there let him remain with God. 1 Corinthians 7:1-11. Now concerning the matters about which you wrote, it is good for a man not to have sexual relations with a woman, but because of the temptation to sexual immorality, each man should have his own wife, and each woman her own husband. The husband should give to his wife her conjugal rights, and likewise the wife to her husband. For the wife does not have authority over her own body, but the husband does. Likewise, the husband does not have authority over his own body, but the wife does.
Apple pie is all about.